So welcome to this session on communication. I am squeezing almost 5 days of training into 1 hour. So this is going to be like drinking from a fire hose as we go along. I've really picked out of that, though, out of the mountain of information, the gemstones, the little diamonds of real great practical learning around communication that you can apply almost immediately after this session. So I hope everybody was able to watch the kind of preparation 5-minute video. That'll give you an overview of the context. I'm only going to dive into a couple of bits of theory, and then we're actually going to work communications during this session. So please go ahead, continue to connect to the Glaxoon whiteboard. We'll jump into that in just a minute, but I'm going to start with a quick presentation of one slide where we can just recap a key part of that, which is the intent versus impact. So let me pull this up a second. Hopefully you can see my slide. Let me know if you can see the slide. Give me a bit of feedback.
Yeah, blue background.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. So communication starts with a very simple formula. When you're communicating something, when we are all communicating something, we have an intent, a meaning that we want to get across to people. And we do that however we naturally like to communicate. How that impacts the receiver, though, can be very different. Just because we're trying to get our intent of our communication across, it doesn't mean that the receiver fully understands the intent of what you're saying, what you're communicating. This applies equally for spoken word communication as well as written word communication. In fact, it's even harder with written communication. And the difference is because we all have different communication preferences, and we're all looking for certain pieces of information. You know, we'll naturally tend to pick up on the information that's either good for us or is pleasing to us. You know, we'll look for the things that we want to hear. Naturally, I'm sure you've been in that situation with presentations and things like that, where you tend to pick out just the little bits of information that resonate with you. And so I can guarantee you, whatever you are communicating, the intent of that is not going to be fully understood by the receiver. And that's just a fact. And it's a good starting point when we think about how to significantly improve our communication. You can also think about it almost like an equation. In the delta between our intent and our impact, that's the difference, the negative difference between the two. The delta between our intent and impact equals the amount of friction you will generate in the workplace with your colleagues and your stakeholders. And friction impedes performance. So the greater the levels of friction that are generated through misunderstandings or irritation on communication, the lower the level of a performance in a team will be. So this very simple equation or fact has a hugely significant impact on performance of a team. And so it is actually one of the fundamental success factors also of a team. If you think about it in reverse, if you can get the intent closer to the impact, you will generate less friction, less misunderstanding, less mistakes. The performance of a team will significantly improve. So that's why I always start with that, because it's kind of underlying foundation to all communication, all communication. And it's this topic around preferences. We all have slightly different preferences in the way that we communicate and the way that we like to work. Just throw some out there. You know, some people are very detail oriented. Some people are absolutely not detail oriented at all. You know, these are just natural preferences that we grow up with as we go through school and then into work. We build up a natural preference for the way that we like to work. So I have a quick questionnaire for you. So let me stop presenting a minute. So what I'd like you to do is get ready to take some simple notes, either on a piece of paper or on your computer or on your phone, whatever. I'm going to ask you just over 10 questions, very quick and very straightforward, over 10 questions. They're multi-choice answer, A, B, C, or D. So very straightforward in terms of the questions. I want you to make a note of your choice of answer, whether it's A, B, C, or D. Very, very simple. So be prepared to make a note as I go through the questions. I'm going to ask the questions really fast, so stay awake as I'm asking the questions and make a note on your answers. Are you ready for the questions? Give me some verbal feedback so I know you're still there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Rapid fire questions then. At work, I am the A, organizer, B, energizer, C, big thinker, D, mediator. So go ahead, make your answer. The question was, at work, I am the A, organizer, B, energizer, C, big thinker, D, mediator. Make a note. Good. Second question coming. I am the most stressed by A, feeling unorganized, B, feeling incompetent, C, feeling restricted, D, feeling disingenuine, which means, you know, kind of feeling not authentic, feeling not authentic.
Can you repeat the options, please?
Certainly. So I am the most stressed by A, feeling unorganized, B, feeling incompetent, C, feeling restricted, D, feeling unauthentic. Good, got that? Third question coming in. I am A, dependable, B, mostly dependable, C, spontaneous, D, mostly spontaneous. So I am A, dependable, B, mostly dependable, C, spontaneous, D, mostly spontaneous. And just give your first answer. You don't have to think too deep on these questions. Question number 4. Chaos does not bother me. Chaos does not bother me. A, false. B, mostly false. C, true. D, mostly true. So that's chaos does not bother me. False, A. B, mostly false. C, true. D, mostly true. Good, got that. Question number 5. I view the world as A, shades of black. B, just black and white. C, shades of grey. D, white and black. So I view the world as A, shades of black, B, black and white, C, shades of grey, D, white and black. Question number 6. I like others to perceive me as. I like others to perceive me as A, responsible, B, intelligent, C, exciting, D, caring. I like others to perceive me as A, responsible, B, intelligent, C, exciting, D, caring. Sorry. Okay, a few more questions and we're done. My strongest skill is A, being organized, B, learning new information, C, being brave, D, helping others. If somebody could admit somebody there, that would be great. And my strongest skill is A, being organized, B, learning new information, C, being brave, D, helping others. 2 more questions. I always go out of my way to help others. I always go out of my way to help others. A, false. B, mostly false. C, mostly true. D, true. I always go out of my way to help others. A, false. B, mostly false. C, mostly true. D, true. Last question. Others frustrate me most when they are A, irresponsible, B, incompetent, C, boring, D, dishonest. Others frustrate me most when they are A, irresponsible, B, incompetent, C, boring, D, dishonest. Right, I went through those questions really fast. I hope you've managed to note those down as you've gone. Now have a look at the answers. Take a quick summary of the answers. Count up how many.
I've got 9. Have I missed out a question here?
Oh no, you're good. That's okay. I was just 9 is fine. That's the questions that we've got. Thanks for the check-in, Azim. Have a look at the questions, answers. Just quickly add up how many A's you've got, how many B's you've got, how many C's you've got, how many D's that you've got. You might have a random spread. You might have more A's, more B's, more C's, more D's, etc. So have a look, count them up quickly. If you have more A's, then you are more procedurally focused. Now, you have to take the questions with a bit of a pinch of salt. Normally, you would have a survey that does 60 multimodal questions, that kind of thing. We've just taken a snapshot of some of those questions, just to give you a little bit of a feel of how this might work. So if you've got more A's, then you're more likely to prefer a procedural way of doing things. If you've got more B's, then you're more likely to be logical and analytical in terms of your preference of communication and work. If you've got more C's, then you're more likely to be creative, which is your main preference. If you've got more D's, then you're more likely to be interpersonal, enjoy working with people and feelings and these kind of things. Now, you might have a split. You might have a very balanced view of, say, A's and C's, for example, or B's and C's together, And that means that, you may be logical, but you might also be creative in terms of your preference. This can also happen. So hopefully you've got a bit of a feel. Hopefully you've got something that's come out as a slightly higher preference than others. So what I'd like you to do now with that kind of input and that kind of thinking, just also take a moment to reflect and go ahead then and jump onto the Klaxoon whiteboard. So I'll bring the Klaxoon whiteboard up on the presentation as well so that you can see it. So hopefully you've all been able to join the Klaxoon whiteboard by now. Let me just make sure I post it once more into the chat so that everybody has it. For those that you've joined in the last couple of minutes, welcome. So please join the Klaxoon whiteboard. And let me just pull you to people waiting in the lobby. Let them in. So if you find your way onto the whiteboard, there's a big pie in the middle of it with different colors: blue, yellow, red, and green. Find your way on there. Take a moment with the questions and also reflect a bit of it in terms of what's your preference of work and communication. Are you more logical and fact-based? And that tends to be where you enjoy to work. And and how you like to communicate. You like to communicate on the facts, and very logical, very analytical. Are you more creative? That's the yellow quadrant of the diagram there. So you like to think big picture, you like being creative, lots of imaginative ideas, and that's your preference in terms of way of working and communicating. Are you more interpersonal? That's the red quadrant. You like to talk about feelings. You like to talk about the people involved in things. You know, this is your preference. So really around the interpersonal side. Or is your preference much more in terms of the procedural, sequential, organizing things, very plan orientated? You love lists, step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh. So take a moment with a little post-it note. You can open up the post-it notes by clicking on the circle at the bottom of the screen. It'll bring a little post-it note up. Go ahead and put your name where you think your preference is on the diagram. Go for it. Go for it. Post-it notes on there with your name. Go and put them on the diagram. Sometimes you may think also that you're logical, but you're also creative, or that you're logical, but you love planning, or that you love working with people, lots of feelings, but you're also planning or creative. So sometimes you can be, you know, across two of the pie parts. So go ahead, put your names on there. Go for it, go for it. Give you a couple of minutes to do all of that. Go for it, go for it. How many people do we have on? Let's see, we should get everybody on there. Good, I can see it coming in nicely. We should have about 13. Go ahead, put your names on there. Don't feel shy. It is only natural that we have a working preference. There is no judgment at all based on this, by the way.
So are we putting our name where we've got the most answers? So if we've got loads of B's, we put on the B green section.
Absolutely, absolutely. Put a little bit your own thinking behind that as well. Is that genuinely where you think your natural way of working is in terms of you're very planned, for example? Go ahead and put them in, go and put them in there. That's it, very good. Keep it going. Put them on the nice colored pie chart bar there. Good, we're getting a few. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Couple more to come. There we go. 10. 2 more or so. Go and put your answers on there. Okay, let's take a look then. So we have many people that are in the logical and planned space. So a few people there sitting between, very logical, but also very organized and very planned. That's perfectly fine. Got a few people very much in the analytical box. Got one person sitting between very planned, but very people and interpersonal feelings, that kind of thing. It's just moved off towards the more heavier planning part. And a couple of people in the interpersonal, and as in you're sitting in 3 areas around the creative as well. So this is really natural preference. Again, I want to be clear, there is no judgment based in this. One communication or one work preference is no better than another. It's just natural. It's the way we grow up. We all have our own preferences. Often those preferences lead to the type of work that we tend to enjoy. So for example, if you're very logical, then it's kind of only natural that you end up with jobs like business analyst, programmer, accountant, for example. Naturally end up in that. If you're more planning orientated or organized, it's only natural that you might end up doing project management jobs or project management work because you enjoy that step by step getting work done. Holiday organizers, very much the green planners, tends to be the natural thing that they enjoy. Creative, I think, speaks for itself. You know, imaginative minds, artists, musicians, that kind of thing. Again, that's only natural, inventing stuff at the creative end of the spectrum. And then the interpersonal. A lot of HR people are just naturally interpersonal. Teachers, naturally interpersonal, because that's what they enjoy the most. Of course, sometimes you can have two dominant preferences. It's very rare to have three dominant preferences, and it's also very, very rare to have the opposite preferences. So for example, it's very, very rare that you genuinely have a dominant preference that is logical and interpersonal at the same time, or creative and planned at the same time. Very, very rare. You can do those things and you can learn those things. It's just that you don't enjoy doing the opposite kind of preference. So for example, that's quite often why creative people never get things finished or built or implemented, because naturally they don't tend to be great at planning and getting things done, but they've got great creative minds. Same with the interpersonal feeling side of things. Naturally, then they're not great at really doing analysis and detailed logical things because they're far more focused on people, emotions, etc. So this is only natural. But this is important when it comes to communication. So if you're very logical, communicating with people that are highly interpersonal, that can be a challenge. Personally, I'm highly logical. That's just my natural preference. My wife is a teacher. I don't know how we communicate, but we've learned over almost 30 years to communicate with each other, right? It's just naturally, we have very different ways of communicating with each other. We've managed to learn how to do that over time. Okay, get the idea. I'm going to pause for questions there. Thoughts, reactions. Does that resonate? Does that suddenly go, huh, okay, that's why I can't communicate with that person? Or, huh, okay, yeah, I've come across that. People have communicated in that style and just drives me crazy. Thoughts, reactions. Give it a couple of minutes. Please speak up.
I've got an interesting one. So I know that I'm definitely not interpersonal. So I knew that what I was not.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is the jobs that I get are mainly to do with managing people, which is weird. Now I potentially understand a little bit of why, because I always do like to ask the question, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I guess that makes me sound clever sometimes. So then I get jobs of, basically leading teams to get to a goal, even though I am not interpersonal. I'm not the best with reading people's emotions. I'm very logical, and you know how that is with your wife being, the opposite, with exactly my situation at home. And yeah, and it's interesting that.
It's a great reflection, and leading people is also a very different angle. Often you end up getting promoted and leading people because you're good at what you do technically, and maybe you're good at even telling people what to do, or informing them, or instructing people what to do. And actually you can sit anywhere on this spectrum and still be good at that. There will be a difference, though, in your interactions with different team members. If the majority of your team members are logical, actually you'll communicate with them really easily, because you'll be giving them the facts and the analysis, and they'll be going, wow, we love facts and analysis. If you have people in your team, though, that really are much more feeling-based, emotional, they need to know who's involved and the values of why they're doing something, then they'll struggle to understand you, and that will generate friction and conflict, and you'll struggle to understand them, and that will generate friction and conflict. So I work a lot currently in finance. I want to build on your example. They're all accountants, and I'm naturally logical, and they tend to be naturally logical. So I communicate with them really well. However, when we're doing anything that's related to HR topics or organizational topics, they really struggle. They genuinely really struggle because they don't understand or are able to communicate the emotions of what they're doing because they're highly logical. And this is the genuine challenge that they have as leaders then, you know, managing teams that also have interpersonal people within their teams. It's a great reflection. Or we could talk, there's whole, I mean, week-long courses on leading then a holistic group of people just like this. Good, good. Any other thoughts, reactions, questions? Excellent point.
So when we are emotional based and we don't lead a team, we work in a team, and but the manager is quite logical, as you said, that friction does appear, and sometimes it's you know for me, I take it too personal at times.
Yes.
You know, and that brings the motivation down for that day. So I just need to, you know, get myself on track the next day to get things done. Yeah.
That's a super awesome reflection, and thank you very much for openly sharing that. That's exactly why understanding a little bit that different people have different communication and work preferences is the foundation then of actually building great teams and working together and bridging the gap between intent versus impact in your communications. So ideally then, you know, let's stick on that opposing logic versus the interpersonal. If the logical communicator, naturally they'll want to give out the facts and the analysis, this, and this. Now that's not going to resonate with somebody that's interpersonal. They might, yeah, get it intellectually, but it's not resonating with their values, their beliefs. You know, why is that happening to the people or impacting people? And vice versa. If you're communicating about the values, the beliefs, the people, and the emotional topics, and that's your natural way of communicating towards the logical preference, they're not going to understand that either. So being able to think about who you're communicating to and what their natural preference might be, and just adapting your communication slightly, not hugely. You know, you can say, hey, look, I want to give you the facts of the emotions in the room at the moment. It's emotional to a logical person. Just by phrasing it like that, it will resonate with them far differently. And the other example, if you just go in and start talking about emotions, that will scare a logical person. But you can put then the emotions as facts. That will change how that's received, and vice versa. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick look. Again, we could dive into that topic for hours, but let's take a quick look. Let's build on what examples that you've just been given. If you move across to the left of the whiteboard, you'll see a box that says what frustrates at the top. And again, we've got the logical, creative, interpersonal, procedural quadrants of the box there. 2 minutes, quick, lots of post-it notes. If you're logical and you're receiving communication, what frustrates you like crazy? If you're procedural and you're receiving communications, what frustrates you like crazy? If you're creative and you know you're receiving communication, what frustrates you like crazy, etc., etc. So go for it in the box. Lots of post-it notes. Go for it. 2 minutes. Go really quick. Lots and lots of post-it notes. There are lots of frustrations. So please fill the box up. Let's see if we can fill the box up. Be 90 seconds from now. Go for it. fill the box up with all kinds of frustrations. Let's build our communications. And we'll take a look. Keep going for it. Frustrations, frustrations, frustrations. 1 more minute left. Lots more post-it notes on there. Go for it. Go for it. Keep going. There's lots of logical, procedural people, so I'm looking for lots of frustrations around that in terms of what frustrates you. Good, keep it going. 30 seconds. Come on, we've got to get some more post-it notes on the board there so we can explore the frustrations. 15 seconds. Let's see if we can get a few more on there. Please do participate. Put some post-it notes on there. Five more seconds. Let's get the last ones on there. Good, time up. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look. So let's start in the interpersonal area. And again, these are preferences. There's no right or wrong. It's just preferences. So let's take a look at the interpersonal then, the kind of things that frustrate people with interpersonal preferences. When a person's not honest, absolutely. Double standards, oh yes. No collaboration, absolutely. When everyone in your team just talks about work, there's no time about getting to know somebody, absolutely. Responses without giving a thought of the underlying problem, absolutely. They're really good examples and absolutely spot on. So when we look at those, if those are the triggers that frustrate, you can also then think in reverse when you're communicating. Even if you've made a mistake, you can still be honest about it, and an interpersonal preference will thank you very much for being honest, even if you've made a bad mistake or something like that. Hiding and being having double standards is definitely going to drive interpersonal people absolutely crazy. On the procedural side, following the rules for the sake of following rules, messy procedures, absolutely. Anyone not doing the things as per the procedure, often I'll add to that, not doing their actions on time, not completing the task on time. Too direct responses, absolutely. Anything that doesn't kind of follow a stepwise view of life will also frustrate procedurally preferenced people. They like to see how things are going to get done. What are the steps to get things done? They like to see what's the plan, not just what the problem might be today. Again, you can think in reverse then. So give them a few bullet points. Give them the communication. Step 1, going to do this. Step 2, going to do that. Step 3, going to do it like that. Even if you're being very creative, which is the kind of opposing preference, you can still use that creatively. So look, my brain is exploding at the moment. I've got number 1, this imagination, and then I've got this number 2, this great idea, number 3. Just by simply putting a couple of numbers in front of what you're saying will resonate so much more with procedural preferenced people. A few hints and tips as we go along. Logical side of things, when a person keeps switching topics, absolutely. Incompetence, absolutely, will definitely drive, especially if people are pretending to know something and it's clear that they don't. That will definitely upset logical people. Not talking about facts and the actual results, lots of theory, making stuff up, hypothesizing without showing a fact, like I believe in this, but actually that's not a fact, right? That will also frustrate logical people. So again, sometimes just bringing things into facts, even if, again, if it's completely something opposite. The fact is that this group of people believe this. It might not be accurate, but that's what they believe, and that's a fact. Perception, that you can, again, put that as a fact base. We've done the analysis, and this is the perception of people. You know, that, and perception is not a fact, but perception is just what people might be thinking around a topic. Again, so you can use some words that just help logical people resonate with what you're saying. Creative, restrictive, absolutely. Time bound, I'll add to the restrictions. Often really annoy creative people. If they've got a deadline to work to, that can be almost the worst thing for a creative people, because rushing people, again, that deadline thing, following rules and procedures, the feeling that gives is that it restricts creativity. If you put very narrow boundaries on an implementation, you're designing something or you're creating a nice piece of software, that can have a very restrictive feeling for creative people. And therefore, you know, giving creative people options in terms of a deadline. Here's 3 options. Could you deliver it on Friday, next Monday, or Tuesday? At least then they get to choose the deadline, even though you might already know, but the deadline is like Wednesday, for example, right? But it just gives them the opportunity to be creative within the space that they set for themselves. Very quick overview of frustrations. I'll take a quick pause again. Reactions, thoughts, questions on that?
Yeah, I think percent. Oh, carry on.
No. Sorry, go on.
I give you the chance. I've talked enough already, eh?
Okay, what's the bottom left one? Forgot what was that? The
procedural.
Yeah, that was very, very similar to my previous job. I used to work in audit at EY in analytics, and it was like an analytics conveyor belt. So we had to cleanse the data, load it, and provide it to the audit team. And one of the main reasons why I basically left is because there was no room for creativity, and I did my own ideas. You have to basically follow exactly the way it needs to be done. There was no room for like adding ideas and trying to implement change. So that's one of the things that frustrated me. But at the same time, it was good because there's a set way of doing everything. Even little things, there's always a set way. So there's very less room for error.
A beautiful example. So I can guarantee you that people that enjoy auditing are definitely logical and procedural. That's their preference. Absolutely. And I know some brilliant auditors. But I want to touch on your points about, you know, you wanted to be creative. It was too restrictive. So you can learn, by the way, and sometimes going out of your natural comfort zone and taking a job that is almost the opposite of what you would normally do, so highly procedural, but actually you're maybe creative or a preference, does help you learn and get a better understanding then of how to communicate to that. So for example, I am highly logical, but I've done jobs in HR and I've worked in HR and I've done huge cultural transformations, which is very opposite to my natural way of working. But I've kind of done that on purpose so that I can get a better understanding of how to communicate and work in that space, and so on and so on. So you can learn and actually do all of these things. It's genuinely not saying that if you're creative, that you cannot be procedural. If you're logical, you cannot be interpersonal, and vice versa. You can learn it and you can do it. What it will do, though, is over time take energy. If you're constantly in almost like the opposite of your preference, it will take energy over time. And this is how people, when they take a job, often, you know, after a couple of years, they get moved around a company and you end up in different jobs that you weren't hired for, that you didn't sign up for. And people can become very unhappy if they feel trapped doing a job that's not their natural preference and it's not something that they signed up to be. And often that's a reason why also people leave a job to then go and find a job that much more natural to their own preference. So in just what you said there, that covers a whole spectrum of leadership, work happiness, preferences, you know, and different styles of working as well. Again, we could spend weeks just on that topic as well, but a good reflection. Just conscious of time then, I have the last big test for you now to see if you can assimilate what we've just learned in a very short space of time and apply it. So what I'd like you to do on the whiteboard is go across to the right-hand side of the whiteboard now. And we're going to pick up on our Chocolicious chocolate factory business. And the Chocolicious chocolate factory is launching a chocolate making holiday for people. It's a 2-day vacation where you can learn the beauty of molten chocolate and turning that into delightful, delicious, chocolicious chocolates. So we're going to make a holiday. We're going to do a sales pitch for our holiday. But what I want you to do, the first task is, if you tend to be very logical on our analysis, I want you to take the opposite position. So if you're logical, you're going to write a sales pitch from an interpersonal perspective. If you're very interpersonal, I want you to go to the logical box and I want you to write a sales pitch for our chocolate making holiday in a very logical style. Same wise, if you're procedural, I want you to go to the creative box and I want you to write a sales pitch for our holiday in a very creative way, and vice versa. If you're a little bit creative, I want you to write it in a procedural way. So all of you can do this. One little post-it note, just a few. How would you sell a chocolate making holiday based on the opposing preference of work? So I have a logical, interpersonal, procedural, creative. I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it, and then 2 minutes to write it down on a post-it note and stick it in the box. All up for this, I'm going to put 4 minutes on the stopwatch. Have a little think about it, write a post-it note, slap it on the board. Are you ready? Go for it. Let's see if we can get some really great sales pitches on the board.
So this is a chocolate making holiday. We need to write the pitch for. That's it.
Exactly.
And if we are logical, we have to write it and in an interpersonal way, right?
Exactly, and put it in the interpersonal box. Very good. Go for it. Go for it. This is putting the theory that we've just learned about different communication preferences into practice. Let's see how good, how wonderful you can make that chocolate making holiday sound for that preference of communication. Go for it. Go for it. Start writing.
Mark, this is really difficult for me. Being creative is, I don't know what to write here. I am actually a mostly, procedural, try to see the things in a procedural way, step by step. And for me, being creative, it's little bit difficult. You have to help me here.
That's the challenge. So think a little bit, take a moment to think about it. Okay, so a creative person is not going to want to see a procedure of the holiday. They're not going to want to see a list of a holiday. They're going to be thinking about, ooh, how creative can I be making chocolate? How much freedom do I have to play? That's the things that they're going to be thinking about, right? So give it a go. Try and break out of that procedural thinking. Try and write something that's going to appeal to someone creative. Go for it. Go for it. Doesn't need to be long, can just be a couple of sentences. Go for it. 2 minutes left. Go for it. Let's start to see some wonderful short sales pitches for making chocolate.
Oh, there's a limit on how many words you can put in a sticky.
Yeah, if you've really filled one sticky up, which is fantastic, add a second. That's fine. Good, we got some great ones coming in. Fantastic. These are great. The ones that are already on the board, absolutely spot on. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Got 1 more minute left. Just needs to be a few short sentences. That's fine. Something that will resonate with that.
That's the long one. That's the long one. As in, they need a pitch, not a text.
Hey man, I talk a lot, man. So that has to go somewhere. So sticky note it is.
Keeping coming. 30 seconds left. Let's get some more on the board. Throw it on there. Good to get your input.
Mark, did you say 10 minutes and then gave us 5 minutes?
No, for 4 minutes. Go for it. Let's get. You got 15 seconds left, but I'll give you an extra. I'll give you an extra minute. Go for it. Go for it. Let's get some good ones down there. Give it another 30 seconds. Go for it. Let's see if we can see some creative and logical pitches. "20 seconds. Get something on there. "10 seconds. See if we can get a couple more on there. Even if it's challenging and difficult, throw a few words on there.
Very lazy person who wrote the logical step by step. That's it.
Very good. So keep it coming. 5 more seconds. Very good. Let's take a look. You can continue to add as we take a look at the board very quickly then. So on the interpersonal side, let's take a look at that. Make some chocolate, taste it and laugh about it. Enjoy an amazing holiday with friends. Get to meet new people, have great discussions with them. That is absolutely spot on for interpersonal. Right? That's going to resonate them. You've got friends in there, you've got meet new people, discuss with people. You know, it's about the people that you will meet. That's excellent. Want to experience something interesting along with that special someone for this Valentine? Sweeten up your relationship with Chocolicious chocolate making holiday. You've written these kind of things before. This chocolate was created with this in mind. You will have a great time with your partner whilst making it, and also the ingredients in this chocolate will enhance your relationship. Absolutely. Very nice. Very nice. You've done that kind of thing before. But absolutely, it's talking about relationships, talking about how that makes you feel. Fantastic. That's exactly. Bored with the usual things on holiday? Try something new. Make chocolates this holiday. If you'd added make chocolates with friends this holiday, that would be even more resonate with that kind of personality. Absolutely. Very good. Very good. sometimes it only takes a minute to think about who's receiving the information and what their preference might be if you know the people. And you can completely change the quality of the communication, the engagement that that communication receives, and therefore the response and the performance you will get from that communication. It really only takes a few seconds to think about it before you communicate or before you write the email. You get a completely different response, completely different response. Procedural. The chocolate making holiday. 1, 2 days. 2, sort the factory. 3, 4 types of chocolate. 4, hotel and expenses paid. 5, able to see the factory line. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely. You know, and you could easily take that list, put it more in a sentence, add people, feelings, and suddenly it's interpersonal, right? But just because you put it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fantastic. That's the way that it works. So you can see already actually how easy it is sometimes just to think about it and how it starts to come. It takes a bit of practice, but once you've practiced it a little bit, it starts to come very naturally. Creative, 50% discount, chocolate making holidays with beer, chipotle on the house. Fantastic. Arts and design, being able to design your own chocolates. Absolutely creative. Why not try making a spicy chocolate cake? Absolutely. You know, something different, something creative, anything that's going to resonate with that. Logical, step by step, learn the facts of chocolate making, the science behind chocolate making. These are the kind of things that will appeal to logical, analytical types as well. Very good. Quick question. How did you find that? I know in the discussion it's kind of difficult sometimes, but quick reaction. How did you find the exercise? Go ahead, Azzy. You got your hand up. Sorry, I can't always see the hands up.
Yeah, no, the main thing was the key word you said there was think about who you're talking to and potentially what type of, people they are. Like I said, I'm not interpersonal at all. Like, generally I'm very logical and stuff like that. But because obviously when you did this exercise, said do it in this way, now I know, okay, I have to follow these rules. Then I think about it and I wrote, even though I'm not interpersonal, I came out with an interpersonal statement, which is, comes down to what you said. Just think about it. You can be you can communicate with all of them, even if you're not them, you can still understand them and talk to them in their language, basically. So that's the thing I learned today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great. Fantastic. Good learning.
In my case, I focused on the word you said, complete opposite. So whatever I would have said in logical and whatever I wouldn't have said, I tried to put it into interpersonal.
Fantastic.
That's exactly what I did.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. And if you think about that, so in broader communications, if ever you have to do communications to a larger group of people, then you can build into your communication a little bit of everything, right? You can really talk about the why, how, what, and who. And suddenly part of that communication is going to resonate with everybody, which is fantastic, right? So absolutely, it's actually not difficult, but it does take a bit of conscious thinking, a bit of understanding, the values that other people might have around that, understanding a bit the steps, and just practicing it. And suddenly your communications will have a completely different impact. In the last minute, I want to touch on one extra thing, which is introvert versus extrovert, because this also has.
Milos wanted to say something, I guess.
Oh, go ahead, Milos. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that interesting about these 4 types that you made. Although you put the emotional in one type, all types are very emotional. And based on my experience, a logical type could be the most emotional of all. Because if you don't respect the way they work and think, they can hold grudges for life. I mean,
Oh yeah,
and if
absolutely.
you have a group of logical people and you didn't respect the way they work and think, they will literally hate you for the rest of your life. So the interpersonal and holistic type of people could sometimes be a lot easier to overcome emotions, and the organized and logical people could be the one who have the stronger emotions. So although it's the interpersonal emotional type have that in their way of work and thinking, but the intensity of the emotion sometimes is a lot stronger at these 2 type of people.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right to reflect on that. And you know, for the benefit of a 1-hour session, I've squashed a lot in, so I've simplified it. But Milos, you're absolutely right. And actually, if you think about human beings are very complicated. You know, everybody's different, and you know, we've simplified a model here, but that doesn't necessarily mean we put people in buckets. Everybody is slightly different. And you know, we can be very emotional as well, even if we don't like to admit it all of the time. So absolutely. And more to come. So we will pick up again on how to build on this understanding. This is like the foundation of all communication, and understanding this well will genuinely help communication improvement, better performance, better teamwork, better collaboration again and again. So we will continue to pick up on the communication topics over the next few sessions, which I'm very much looking forward to. So thank you very much for joining this session. Really great interaction and involvement with that. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Very nice session.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks. Bye.